Hello and welcome. Hopefully, everyone is just getting set up here and joined. So we're going to kick right off. I know we're on a tight time frame today. Welcome to the session. We are going to discuss some critical learnings. I've been an entrepreneur and have been starting and building businesses for the last 2 decades. And every single one of those businesses has been central to the partner-led motion and have learned a lot of things along the way. So hopefully I can share some of those with you today. First, I'll start with who the hell am I? My name is Justin Gray. I'm currently the Chief Revenue Officer over at Shift Paradigm. We'll get into how that organization came about here in a second. But as I had alluded to, I've founded, and built several different businesses, four to be in fact, across the last 20 years. Have had exits across all of those businesses now at this point. I'm also now the limited partner in two different venture capital firms, and I do some growth stage and seed stage investing under a company called Gray Matter Ventures as well. You can see some of the logos that we work with at Shift Paradigm down there below. And if you take a look at this deck after the session's over, feel free to connect with me on any of those channels that you see there over on the left. So Shift Paradigm, and I'll give a brief history around this. It's predominantly relevant to the LeadMD history. So I was the founder and CEO of an agency called LeadMD. Started in 2010, where it was acquired in 2021 by a private equity-backed roll-up, and hence we are now known as Shift Paradigm. After that change, I took on the role of sales, marketing, and partnerships, which is really kind of the same role I've been playing for the past 10 years. So no big change there. So rather than being a 50-person, 56-person agency, we are now a 250 plus employee agency, spanning campaign engagement, technology and data, and go-to-market strategy. But LeadMD really got its start within what I would call the revenue operation space, or the technology implementation space, working with a number of key partners. You can see many of those down below there. But our first partner was Marketo. I'm sure everyone on the call has heard of that organization and is familiar with now Adobe's offering within that marketing automation space. And so I will share with you what was the go-to-market strategy and growth plan really behind LeadMD, and maybe a couple of sides into other businesses as well. But day one, LeadMD was founded based on what was a very prevalent market need, i.e., all of this influx of technology into the marketing space, whereas previously marketing was kind of a traffic cop between agencies and different providers. With the advent of marketing technology and really marketing automation, marketing was now responsible for everything within that demand gen process. So, who is our buyer? What's the messaging we're going to aim at them? How are we ultimately going to lead them through our funnel and convert them into revenue? So in starting a new business and taking that business to market, and still to this day, what I tell my account executives, I'm always looking for a cheat in business. So what is that cheat going to be, right? And partnerships became very evident that was a huge potential, just in terms of forming that faster route to market, and creating a situation that would solve a number of fundamental problems that we had in the early days of that business. I want to share the results of that partner-led motion, just because we've been doing it for over 12 years now, and they're pretty substantial, even before we get into the tactics and kind of my number one or my top learnings from that process, because I think that they're so powerful. So I overlaid, and this is recent data. This is based on 2021 and prior. So you can see on the left-hand side how our channel sales funnel performs, and on the right-hand side, our organic sales funnel. So we always go to market, obviously direct to market as well, but we have a really prevalent and strong partner-led motion. So if you're looking at some of those metrics there, right, like even from top of funnel, there's some pretty distinct differences. Number one, our acquisition, our net new leads count on the channel-led side is less than our organic count, but you see down those sides and those conversion metrics that things start to change pretty rapidly. So we know just by looking at these stats that every lead or every deal that we engage with through our partner network is just more valuable. The buyer's more qualified. Their expectations are set properly. We've got an element of trust because someone is kind of bringing us into that deal or we're bringing someone into that deal, that immediately amplifies that relationship and that trust. So those conversion points all of the way down the channel-led motion are just more effective than our organic motion. And again, like we invest across both of these go-to-market motions, but at the end of the day, our partner-led motion is generating twice the bookings, and this is all net new revenue, net new logos, first logo under a new client. We're generating twice the revenue through a partner-led motion than we are direct to market. And there's some really critical reasons for that I'll cover within this presentation. But that 2x just gives us that North Star that we need to continue to invest within this, what is now a widely emerging channel. And when we started out was just kind of a hack. It was kind of a cheat that we had identified. And now that's become a really solid, repeatable motion within the organization. The other aspect here that I want to highlight is the lifetime value of those clients. 270% more LTV coming from the logos that we generate through a partner-led motion than our organic and direct-to-market motion. So keep those in mind as we're going through some of these learnings here today, because I fully believe that the channel motion of the partner-led motion is one of the most untapped go-to-market strategies out there today. It's also kind of, and we were talking about this prior to the session, one of the most bastardized. Like, it's not easy just to check the box and immediately open up a partner channel or an ecosystem. I think organizations have looked at orgs like Salesforce, and they've said, like, the App Exchange, their partner motion has become so powerful. We need to do that. We need to get the best logos in there. There's a lot more that goes into creating a successful partnership strategy and go-to-market motion than just adding logos. And I think that's incredibly important to keep in mind. So getting back to that cheat concept, in the early days of a business, or really even as the market changes as it has with COVID, and now pre-recessionary environments, our ICP kind of has a tendency to shift with that as well. But in the early days of LeadMD, we were really focused on who is our best buyer. We've got all of this potential because all of these organizations were investing within marketing technology. So you had SMBs and high growth startups, all the way over to highly mature businesses that were looking to fend off competitive pressure and transform and adopt the latest in technology. So we could kind of spray and pray and have a very broad TAM and ICP, or we could get really focused on who we were going to market and serving. And so that was our desire. And so when we started looking at our ideal clients, and this is a critical exercise for anyone, everyone should be reevaluating ICP at least once per year. And I would actually recommend once a quarter at some level. So in spelling out who our best buyers were, the types of organizations, the revenue bands, the industries, we had a really decent understanding of who those best buyers were, but that was absolutely amplified when we started to bring in the partner motion and wrapping that around the ICP. Who are the partners that are already serving that ICP? What value do they provide? Is that value complementary to what we do? Will they see value in our services not only to the client, but to their internal sellers, their marketing team, their product teams? Can we provide feedback there? And can we provide insight into the market that they're not getting right now? Do they believe in partnerships? This is still one of the biggest questions that we ask today. Are they behind this concept? Are they willing to put marketing dollars behind it? Do they understand that this isn't just a lead acquisition channel, but it's truly a co-sell motion where we're bringing a better unique value proposition to market as a result of the combination of our organizations? And then finally, is that joint solution compelling to the market? And that's a great example of kind of the LeadMD model. All of this technology flooding the market, very low talent and skill set focused on how to actually run that software. It was kind of a no-brainer fit, and still continues to this day with so much new technology coming around. And look at that in the lens of PLG or ABM or intent, right? We're constantly innovating and new partners are coming to market with great solutions. But if you talk to anyone who went to school for marketing, and I have the either the pleasure or the unfortunate designation to fall into that bucket, these aren't skill sets that we learned in school, right? Like, you're not going to go take a class on marketing automation in most universities, and therefore most individuals are learning on the job, and that that doesn't always give the most complete picture of how to get the best results from all of these different technologies. So by combining, in our case, a services firm with a technology provider, and often cases many technology providers in the same deal, we can really amplify the value of those solutions and provide a better path to revenue or to value for the client as well. So that's just some examples of how taking a look at ICP, not only through the direct buyer, but who the organizations that serve that buyer, can really help you hone in on who your best buyers are, who those audiences are, and even from a persona perspective. All right, so once you've gone through that process of identifying those partners, it's also important to note that that life cycle of a partner tends to have kind of I'm thinking back to the life cycle of a startup, right? Like it kind of has that moat or that trough of insecurity or that blip on the radar where it's not just straight line growth. And I really think that's important. It's an intentional check and balance within this process. Again, not just putting logos up on a website, but really being able to understand what the joint value is that we're going to bring to market. How are we going to integrate our marketing, our sales process? How are we going to judge success? And I'll talk a lot about that here in just a moment. But that forming stage is critical to align a threaded approach throughout the organization. And then once you've got all those different departments talking, locking hands around this, then you can begin to go to market and really experiment with solutions and products, understand the joint customer stories that you're producing, and then start marketing those back both to the market, but probably even more importantly, within the partner organization. That's just an absolute critical aspect that we found. We have to keep re-educating our partners about the value that we're providing to their clients and arm them with those stories. Something important to call out here, even within that forming stage, and actually I'll talk about this in a second, so pause on that. But what if you're thinking about that forming stage from a planning perspective, then you really get into that storming aspect. I wanted to share a story because this is truly the inflection point of LeadMD. So starting off, very typical agency, we were growing 30%. In fact, we've grown 30% year over year in every year except for one. It's been very formulaic and repeatable in that regard. And that year for us was 2013 as a result of the exact exercises that I've talked about. So who are going to be our best partners? How are we going to go to market with them? Are we aligned across the organization? What are the, what's the event strategy look like? What's the marketing strategy look like? This is a great example of how once you feel confident within those selections, you can really place a big bet if you've done your research properly. And so for folks on the, within the session, if you were in marketing and digital marketing back in the kind of, mid teens, right? Like 2012, 2015, Marketo Summit was a big event. It was a bit, a big opportunity to come together with like-minded marketers. And we had kind of seen that building in 2011, 2012. And so now at the point where we felt comfortable that Marketo was going to be one of our key partners, we made a big investment, and an investment so much that I literally wiped our bank account to invest in the level of sponsorship that we went into with the show. We went as a platinum sponsor. In years prior, if you're looking at that would be a LinkedIn or Google or Facebook, right? Like someone that had a partnership maybe from a technology or a data perspective, they had the money to burn. I certainly did not, but I felt very confident that we had the right partner selected and the right types of clients were going to be at that particular event. So I literally put the entire company on the line. I paid payroll for the next 4 payrolls out of my personal checking account because I wanted to invest in a way that would say, we're here, we're in this ecosystem, and we're a committed player there. Largest footprint, booth space out there, and suddenly everyone had kind of LeadMD as a top of mind, and that show paid absolute dividends. It's the only year that we almost doubled, 82% growth between 2012, 2013, and then we were kind of on a different trajectory and different clip through the rest of the business, obviously pretty exponentially there over the rest of the business's growth curve leading up to acquisition in 2021. So just an example of how you can make a really big splash if you've done your homework, you've done your research, and you feel comfortable there. So when we think about, we designated our partners, how do we start to frame those solutions to the market? Implementation or services directly related to a technology in our case, right? Like how do we implement your solution? How do we optimize it? That's kind of table stakes. And that's really where I see a natural partner focus, right? Like that applies to services orgs, it applies to technology orgs. Maybe you're a provider that has a strong dependency on data. So you go to market with a data provider and you're primarily focused on selling that software to again, new logos. But if you think about this really along the lines of the end user maturity curve, you can start to open up a lot of new possibilities for your business as well. We think about this as bookending, and that's what we call it internally. So yes, we're going to focus on implementation. We're going to focus on optimization, helping people run the software. But what else does that organization need to think about in order to be ready for that purchase? And then likewise, what's that maturity curve look like over time? We've done this partner after partner, where our first motion after that kind of planning or forming stage is developing a maturity curve. Like, what does it look like not only to be ready for that solution, what's it look like to run that over 12, 24, 48 months so that you get this natural roadmap of growth. And it also allows us to expand our service offerings to extend far beyond just that single inflection point where, in this example, we're implementing new software into an entire roadmap. Now, this goes back to what I mentioned in terms of partner value. The biggest challenge within SaaS certainly is churn and that lack of LTV. And so if you help that organization spell out their maturity model and you attach your value prop to leading their end users along that maturity model, in our case, that's yielding services revenue, each rung that we climb on that model, it's a huge joint win. It also fills a gap which tends to be pretty prevalent from the end user side, which is, what do we do now? If you survey most marketing and sales and RevOps teams, one of their biggest questions is, we bought this, we invested, what do we do now? This motion solves exactly for that, and that's why it's been so absolutely critical. So now that we've thought about our offerings, how we kind of form those up, now one of the most critical teams to align and also realign, by the way, is our sales teams, like our go-to-market teams. And we've implemented an interesting strategy here that kind of goes counter to a lot of sales segmentation that I think is really important. And it rewards the relationship. Overall, I want my sellers and even my consultants to be forming relationships with inside of our partner org. Those relationships get really clunky when you allow them to be governed by sales segmentation. So for example, and I'm showing this on the left-hand side here, our go-to-market teams are segmented around revenues, annual revenues of our target organizations. That's sometimes prevalent within the partner. Other times it might be employees, which is a great example here, which is actually how a number of our key partners segment their sales teams. Again, that gets really clunky when an account exec has formed a relationship with a seller who's predominantly within their band, but also sells outside of that band. So if you've got 250 employees and less, and we're segmenting around revenue, you may have a 150 person organization that has 350 million in annual revenues. And that would mean that relationship is kind of broken. That AE on the partner side has to go work with a different AE on my side of the house. And so we completely wiped that off the table after running that for a couple of years, where we were kind of passing leads around between AEs. And now we allow our account execs to own the relationship on the partner side. So all of those partner AEs that they're spending time and effort to align with and ensure that they are top of mind when that new prospect calls and they've got a challenge that we can solve, we allow them to own all the potential engagements and leads that come off of those relationships, regardless of whether they cross our internal sales segmentation. Again, buyers don't care about our segments. And in many cases, our buyer is the partner, right? That's my one-to-many relationship that I'm absolutely focused on fostering. And so I don't want to break that relationship and have them go speak to someone they've never talked to before. They don't know how they run a cycle. So really, really key motion that's turned out to be very effective for us. Obviously, you have to ensure that your AEs can span those different segments effectively, but that investment is absolutely worth it. Same situation kind of along those lines in thinking about your partner contacts. Let's take the sales team, for example. Their stack is complicated enough, right? We don't need to overcomplicate things, by making every deal look a little bit different and giving them the standard consulting answer of it depends. Yes, it does depend, but we can productize our services in ways that allows the partner to become familiar with what our prescription is going to look like, right? Is it implementation? Is it migration? I'm speaking predominantly from a technology platform perspective, right? Does the client need training? Do they not have in-house talent? Does someone go out on maternity or paternity leave? They're in need of staff aug. And then we have a list of add-ons that we allow them to kind of understand how those fit in with the rest of these offerings. That's been incredibly successful in not giving the partner the ability to scope our services, but giving them a glimpse into what that potential deal could look like. So when they're talking to an early stage prospect and they want to know, you're suggesting that we bring in a partner on this, but what is their engagement going to look like? What have you seen in the past? They can answer those questions confidently, so they don't need to, get us on the phone every single time just to understand what our prescription is probably going to look like. So productization really does make perfect within this. We just don't need to add more complexity. Keep in mind that these folks are dealing with the platforms that they sell, the personalities of their buyer, oftentimes serving the role of that buyer, right? So if they're selling to the CMO, they have to speak CMO. They have to understand the challenges against that business. What did COVID do to that business? What are they doing now in kind of this recessionary environment? Let's take one area of complexity off of their plate and ensure that, hey, this is easy to sell and therefore easy to bring us in that potential deal cycle. Next step in the process, absolutely, and I've got this up on the slide, but I'll almost reiterate it word for word. We build co-marketing in at the partnership agreement level. And this is where it's really so critical to have alignment within your organization. A lot of folks run a partner team or a dedicated group of partner managers, and they do a lot of the partner prospecting and relationship management. But you need to fully integrate your marketing, your sales, your customer success motions, if that's relevant, on our side, our consulting teams, so that we understand what a great partner looks like and what we're committing to each time we bring a new partner on board. So we've got multiple tiers of partnership, obviously, but our platinum partners, as we term them, every single one of those has committed to a certain number of co-marketing activities. And they actually get this co-marketing framework that we provide to them. This is exactly how we're going to understand the right audiences to aim at, what we're going to expect from you, what we're going to provide in return. And we build a lot of value into this. We try to make this as turnkey as possible on a partner by partner basis. So again, within that forming stage, we're doing a lot of work so that ultimately that partnership can run smoothly over time. Just a glimpse at what one of those playbooks looks like. And this is where we can use our vast access to technology to really reward the partner. So because of our technology ecosystem, we get a lot of technology, sometimes at a greatly discounted route. I can provide that technology back into the hands of my partner sellers, where maybe their marketing team's not as open or free with those resources. Maybe they don't have the same technologies that we have. I'm talking about like simple tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I'm talking about simple tools like 6 Sense. I'm talking about tools like SalesLoft, right? We've got all this great technology, so we can go out and build these playbooks, have them ready for specific messages to be input that applies to that partner. And all they have to provide us is their target account list, their target buyers within those lists. And then we will run them through these cadences as a way to warm up those buyers, help them penetrate those organizations. And again, the partner is my primary buyer. So the more value I can provide to them upfront and early on within those stages, the more I can prove that I'm committed to them, the better the outflow of that partnership is going to be. So just a glimpse at that. I also want to talk about what, if you take away one thing from this presentation, take this away. Like, I fully believe that the KPIs of a successful partnership should be the end user that we're aiming at, right? It can't be usage based. It can't be, high level vanity metrics, but what do our joint prospects care about? We call those outcomes. And so, a lot of organizations, if you look at a typical funnel, are lead based, right? Who's that contact? What account are they at? Or if they've adopted an ABM strategy, what's that target account? What are the buying committees within those? And those are great. That's what I would consider to be table stakes. The first element, the first marker of a lead is what we call an outcome. It's when we can understand the fundamental mission critical goal of one of our joint client organizations, or joint prospect organizations, I should say. And that's the first thing that we record within our CRM. It's how we actually think about lead flow and deal flow going back and forth between us and the partner as well. All that typical demographic information is there, but what is the mission critical lever that we're going to be able to pull for that joint client? Is it revenue generation? Is it lifetime value creation? Is it new market penetration? Is it taking a new product to market? What are they fundamentally trying to do? And so we've got an entire framework for this, just kind of teaching partner sellers and partner CSMs what an outcome is, what makes a good outcome. But what it does is really align both organizations around this notion that we're going to track our results in the language of our client. We're going to ensure that when we go back after that implementation or after a year of serving that joint client, we're talking in their language. We know what they care about. This also allowed us to be very effective in COVID. A lot of organizations sent that now very stereotypical, how is this pandemic affecting you? We knew how that was going to affect our clients because we knew what they were trying to do fundamentally before the pandemic. And we were able to make a lot of inferences around, well, all right, well, lack of in-person is really going to throw that for a loop. Here, we better come with some ideas and some new strategies that are going to allow them to still hit that mission critical goal. So that big picture from a market perspective, from a joint client perspective, is just so critical in understanding the true value that we provide to clients. Those outcomes run, really they form our pre-pipeline. So everything about our CRM and our interactions with our partners are focused on how mature is that outcome? Do we feel like we've got really a strong KPI to stand on? Do we understand all their pain points? Do we understand the deliverables that are going to yield that desired outcome, both from a technology side as well as the services side? And then once we fully have a qualified outcome, we're going to flip that over into pipeline. Again, it just allows us to accomplish what is often very difficult within a partner-led motion. And that's the fact that the buyer is not really at an opportunity stage yet. They're not talking money, we're not talking timelines, but we are talking need. And so this really just gives a framework and a format for that need to reside in, allows us to nurture deals at an early stage that might fall off a lot of traditional funnels. And so just so critical to establish a life cycle around these, and again, have alignment between both organizations. And then of course, based on those outcomes, we can generate a business case. I talked about what is one of the main challenges in any sales organization these days, the fact you have to speak the language of your buyer. So oftentimes it's really difficult for a rep that's been in the seat for 6 months to engage a CMO or a CRO and talk the language that they are going to identify with, to put together a business case that's rock solid, that can be taken in front of a board or an executive team. Plugging our folks in that literally do this every day allows us to create that business case, augment their skill set, the partner's skill set, and base that around, again, those outcomes that we know are mission critical to that end user. These business cases, especially these days when every org is looking at every single dollar that is spent, have not only become table stakes, but if you want a deal, you better understand what that dollar invested is going to kick off in terms of return. And then finally, the last stage that we'll talk through here are partner relationships. And I've said this many times already, even within this Prezzo, but they mirror our client relationships. We account plan based upon our partners. So, how are we dealing with attrition over at that partner? Do we lose a key stakeholder? What are their critical objectives for this next year? In the same way that you'd run a QBR or an annual planning exercise for an end user, we're running those for our partners. And again, that's not just one division. That's just not our partner team. That's partner, that's marketing, that's sales, that's consulting, and that's even our executive team looking at these plans and saying, do we have a good relationship there? Do we have everything that we need to go to market effectively with these folks? I've done it. I've actually, I'm a minute over, so not that great. I'll run through these quickly. So big rock takeaways. Please align your ideal partner profile to your ICP. It'll amplify the value of that exercise. Once you've got that locked down, invest. You want to stand out. There's a lot of noise out there. Identify weaknesses within the partner and fill those gaps proactively. Show your value rather than waiting for a deal to be on the line. Reward the relationship. Again, keep once you've formed relationships internally, keep those people together. It'll pay dividends. And then finally, define joint success on the terms of the client. It will generate case studies, it'll generate client stories, and that's what you need to go around within that partner and demonstrate your value. Appreciate everyone's time today. I know it was a quick session. I know this deck will be available after the session's over here, and I greatly appreciate everyone's time.